Welcome back to another episode of the Erin Coupe Podcast. Today, we are diving into a topic that hits home for a lot of professionals, especially those of us trying to balance work, life, family, and everything in between. The belief that we have to neglect ourselves to succeed. How many of us have bought into this idea that if we just keep grinding, keep pushing and forcing, and keep putting others before ourselves, we'll finally hit the jackpot of success and we'll finally be rewarded with the happiness that we've been after? In today's episode, I want to talk about why that's not only untrue, but actually counterproductive to your success and performance. Neglecting yourself is never the right answer. If you're feeling drained, frustrated, and even overwhelmed, this conversation is for you. Let's dive into it. First off, let's talk about this widespread belief that in order to succeed in life, we have to sacrifice our own needs. I know I fell into this trap for many years. I thought that if I just worked even harder, more hours, skipped breaks, skipped meals, prioritized my career above all else in my life, that I would get to a place in my life where all those things would suddenly feel like they were perfect. I would get to a place where I felt that I was fulfilled even faster if I just grinded out a little bit more. But that is a fallacy. The truth is, neglecting yourself will not get you ahead. It will burn you out. I am not alone in this experience. I have seen it time and time again with hundreds of clients. People who at the end of the day feel completely depleted because they've spent all of their energy taking care of others or giving, and allowing their own energy, their own attention, their own focus to be diminished and drained out of them in order to meet the demands of everyone else that needs from them or wants from them. They've bought into this notion that putting themselves last is the price they have to pay for success or for where they have made it in their careers. But what drives this mindset? Often it's a desire to prove our worth through external markers like titles and money and recognition. It's the validation from the external world that you are enough. We tell ourselves this, and once we achieve that next milestone, then we'll make time for self-care. We tell ourselves that at some point in the future, we will have the time to properly take care of ourselves. We actually do believe that in the future is that time that we get to live more of our life. But we tell ourselves that right now, we just have to put in the time, the effort, and give everything we have, and eventually we get to enjoy life. In reality, what is actually happening is the further you push off taking care of yourself, the harder it becomes to reach milestones in your life in a healthy and sustainable way. Basically, the harder it becomes to achieve your goals. And guess what? To enjoy the journey on the way to them is virtually impossible from this mindset. Another reason people tend to neglect themselves is the fear of being seen as weak or less committed than some of their counterparts. How many of us have hesitated to take time off or to set boundaries that are healthy for us because we're worried about how it will look to those around us? Will people think we're not dedicated or not as dedicated as them? Will they think that we're selfish? Will they look down upon us? Will it hinder our next promotion or pay raise? This idea that prioritizing your well-being is selfish or weak is deeply ingrained and yet just so wrong. It is not selfish to take care of yourself. It is selfish to expect someone to live life the way you live yours. That is what selfishness is. So let's rewind this age-old adage of what it is to be selfish. It is not selfish to take care of you, not even close. I think a lot of this is rooted in societal expectations especially those imposed on women in male dominant fields. Historically, women's leadership and autonomy were suppressed under the norms of what patriarchal systems had created. And we're no longer in that world. Yes, there's still male dominant industries, but we are all people and we have to treat each other as if everyone is a human being, which they are, and forget about these norms that were set in place decades ago that women couldn't care for themselves and had to just give to the family and take care of the man who's working. That's not the world we're in anymore. Self-care had become synonymous with indulgence or with weakness. Let's let that go because that is not true. We're shifting away from that in so many ways as a society, as a collective, and as individuals. Certainly, companies are starting to understand and have been for the last few years that how their people feel and how their people think and how they treat themselves absolutely impacts their performance. Not only their performance, it impacts their morale and their mood, their attitude, and their behavior. How do they treat other people? All of that is a reflection of what is going on in them. And if they're not treating themselves well, it is going to show up in their work for certain. So let me be clear. Prioritizing your own well-being is not a sign of weakness. In fact, it is essential to maintaining a positive attitude, a high productive performance level, and resilience in the face of challenges. When you neglect yourself, you're more likely to become frustrated, overwhelmed, stressed out, and even resentful. And here's the kicker. It's much easier to be your best self and serve others when you're operating from a place of wholeness and of wellness, not depletion. So how do we shift this mindset? The first thing is to understand that sacrificing your personal well-being is never the path to fulfillment. Sure, busy schedules are a fact of life, and most of us lead full lives. We have to find ways to carve out time for ourselves within those schedules. Sometimes I talk about this as something has to give. So making sacrifices on a daily basis is part of what it means to be balanced. It is not about external balance in the world. It's about internal balance. So if I haven't been able to exercise for 3 days, on day 4, you better bet that something's got to give somewhere in my work schedule or in my family life, because I'm going to need to make that time for me that I have not made in those few days prior. If I don't, something somewhere is going to fall through the cracks, or someone at home is going to get the brunt of that. You see how that works? So sacrifice is a daily thing. It's a moment to moment thing. Every day does not need to look the same. It's up to you to figure out how to carve out that space and time to give you what you need. We have to meet our own needs. We can't expect others to do that for us. A couple of personal strategies that also helped me turn things around for myself. One of the biggest game changers for me was establishing an early morning routine. This was at the time in my life when my kids were pretty young, around 1 and 2 is when I began this routine where I would set the alarm Monday through Thursday for 5:15. My kids were awake anywhere from 5:45 to 6:15 at that point. And then I needed to get ready for work and commute to the city. So 5:15 to around 6 a.m. on average was 45 minutes, 4 days a week that I gave to me to actually nourish my internal self. This wasn't time that I was working out. This was time that I was meditating, I was journaling, or I was reading. And what that did was allowed me to feel so filled up and fueled each morning that I felt like I could go and conquer the world. If I otherwise just rolled out of bed and straight to the shower and off to work in the hustle and bustle of traffic and the city and all the demands and pulls on my energy and time, I was not set up for a successful day. And that drained me so much prior to having this routine. So having that moment of stillness in the morning where I could allow myself to just be with myself with no distractions was really, really powerful, and so powerful to stay in my own power internally in myself before the whirlwind of the day got the best of me. Another thing I did was reevaluate my evening habits. So for a while, I was in the habit of Netflix every night, and a lot of nights, a glass of wine to wind down or take the edge off. And when I realized, okay, there's nothing wrong with watching Netflix. Sometimes it is just a mindless escape or a time to kind of reset yourself a little bit. But when I started swapping out watching TV every night for things that were more restorative, things like stretching, reading, taking a salt bath, even just having a good conversation with my husband, those things really started to help refuel me in ways that I wasn't doing previously. So it's these couple of small shifts that really made a huge difference in how I felt and how I approached my day or the following day. Let's talk about the habits we fall into when we're not taking care of ourselves. It's easy to rely on external pick-me-ups like caffeine and sugar and fried food and alcohol to get through the day, or like I said earlier, to take the edge off. But these habits, when we turn to them repeatedly, they become more of a signal that there's something we're not looking at, or there's something that we're avoiding within ourselves. Something deeper is being neglected that is actually calling for our attention. We're not taking care of ourselves from the inside, and those quick fixes can only do so much. I mean, there is no easy button. There's no pill for everything. If there was, I'd be on a yacht somewhere, probably not talking on this podcast right now. So I'm not saying you need to give up morning coffee. I love my morning coffee. It's a ritual. I'm not saying you need to give up the glass of wine on occasion. Nothing wrong with that. What I'm saying is that if you find yourself depending on these things, not as an addiction, but as something that you need to feel energized or to cope with stress, then it's time to take a step back and ask yourself, what is really going on? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you getting enough nutrition? Are you giving yourself the space or the time to recharge? Are you exercising and getting movement in your body? Are you hydrating yourself enough? Because a lot of times these are root causes of the physical body causing more stress and anxiety in your mind. It's all directly correlated. Your well-being is a reflection of your mindset and vice versa. So the long-term effects can be devastating of not taking care of you. Burnout, chronic stress, illness, anxiety, depression. Trust me, I have been there with these types of scenarios that are debilitating and draining and exhausting. And I know how hard it can be to dig yourself out of that hole. But the good news is it's never too late to start making positive changes. Let me say this loud and clear. Again, prioritizing self-care is not selfish. The only time it's selfish is when you expect others to live their lives according to how you live yours. Otherwise, taking care of yourself is one of the best things you can do for you, for your productivity, for your relationships, and for your mental health. I want to challenge you to reevaluate your daily habits and routines. Where could you prioritize self-care just a little bit more? Maybe it's waking up 30 minutes earlier for some quiet time. Maybe it's choosing healthier habits in the evening. Maybe it's simply giving yourself permission to take a break without feeling guilty. Small adjustments lead to big changes. So as I wrap up this episode, here are 3 actionable steps to start to take action right now in prioritizing yourself without sacrificing your career or other responsibilities that you have. Evaluate those daily habits, be mindful of those external pick-me-ups, and prioritize your well-being over perfection. It is about finding balance that works for you within yourself, not about that external balance. It does not need to look a certain way to other people in order for you to feel good from the changes that you make. At the end of the day, professional success does not have to come at the cost of your health, happiness, or your peace of mind. By making your personal well-being a priority, you'll find that you have more energy, more clarity, and the resilience to tackle whatever life throws at you. Thank you for joining me today on the Erin Coupe Podcast. I hope this episode inspires you to take better care of yourself, to not feel guilty about it, and to rethink what it really means for you to feel whole. Remember, neglecting yourself is not ever the right answer. Investing in yourself is. Until next time, take care and stay authentic. Remember, the meaning you seek, the answers you yearn for, they often lie within. I encourage you to follow me at erincoupe.com or AuthenticallyEC on Instagram. Subscribe now so you don't miss a step of our journey together. Until next time, manifest great things.